Welcome to Facing the Nation for April 19, 2024. I hope that you guys had a wonderful week. And as we start the program, permit me to remind you to tell a neighbor, tell a friend, call them up, let them know that Facing the Nation is on. Today, we're going to have two very special guests, and we'll be, diving into the major issues that we are facing right now in terms of what's happening in the country, particularly with infrastructure. So call up a friend, call up a neighbor, tell them Facing the Nation is on. They can't afford to miss today's program. Join us on the People's National Congress Reform page on Facebook, APNU AFC page on Facebook, the People's National Congress Reform YouTube page, and of course on your local TV, Channel 6. All right? Without any further ado, I want to introduce my guest today because we have a short time and there is so much to talk about. He is no stranger to Facing the Nation, no stranger to Guyanese, no stranger to social media. He is none other than the Honorable David Patterson, Member of Parliament. Welcome.
Good afternoon to you and your viewers. My pleasure to be here once again. Obviously, we have interesting times in our country.
Yes.
So, pleasure to be here.
All right. So I know we don't have a lot of time with you today because you have other engagements. So I want to head straight into what's happening. I mean, there are a lot of things happening, particularly in the infrastructure sector in the country. We know that this government seems to believe that the best thing to do, that where all their focus should be, all the money should go, it's on infrastructure right now. So there's a lot happening. There's been a lot of talk about what's happening at GPL, of course. Over the last few months, the country has been suffering with the frequent blackouts and what's happening there. But yesterday, the announcement, because people have been asking questions on terms of the cost of this project, and we see the government now saying that it will cost for them to get this ship. Just the mobilization fee is $1 million US, and we're not talking about what it's going to take per kilowatt. Let's talk about that.
Well, look, the issue that you have is simple. Uh, Create a problem, which the PPP did. They've done nothing at all for the last 4 years. So they created a problem. They've gone around and then they've used about 6 different ministers who came with 6 different tales and lies about what's not done with the APNU in the APNUA at the time. We've disputed that. We've provided the nation with the facts and everything like that. So they created a problem. So we have a shortage of electricity, and they created this problem by not buying new sets, by not maintaining the existing sets. And then obviously the country was plagued into a series of blackouts every day, daily blackouts every day. And then in the end, what happened is that like they want to be saviors, and they went and you don't know where they found, and they found this barge out of Cuba through a third party in Kuwait. I want people to make the nexus. They found some company in Kuwait who had a barge in Cuba, and who they were just sitting there waiting. This is almost similar to the 17 containers that they found for in Honduras.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bought them. And then, of course, they announced that the barge will be sailing from Cuba to here and to
Cuba.
here
Mm-hmm.
sometime in May or those things like that. Pure, and then, of course, they announced the cost. I mean, when you interrogate it, you realize that you're paying in excess than 55 US per megawatt, which is exorbitantly high. You don't know the deals with this thing here, so the price they announce to the public is what they're paying just for the ship to come and the operation means. Now we have to supply the fuel, all just short-sighted, all the short-sighted plan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, this is one of those, in my opinion, one of those suit-type deals. You create a problem, find a
Yeah.
middleman, and people get cutbacks, and then obviously because the country is desperate uh, to end blockouts, they're saying oh, it's a good thing, but it's obviously is really a bad financial deal, a short-sighted deal. But the problem purely and solely lies on the lack of management and the lack of skill and the corruption um, involved with PPP. But that's generally it. And that's what they do all the time. Just bought 27 containers from Honduras for $30 million. They can't even install them and have them working. They've been here almost 6 months already. They can't even install them. So I'm not no
Yeah.
faith that this what they claim that how this ship was here and started to produce power from May the I haven't even told you how much what we have to do to connect to the power.
Yeah.
But it's typical PPP.
You know, you're providing, and most Guyanese are now beginning to believe that this may be something planned. When we also look at the where the company is coming from, we know there have been quite a few deals now with Qatar. We have that ongoing issue between the government and City Hall in regards to the Thomas Land property. And who is to say that this is not some form of compensation, because that project may more than likely be stalled? And I mean, rightfully so, these are things that we have to be looking at, you
Well,
know.
this is not mean you mentioned secure, but this goes further back. I want your viewers to recall that in 2020, a sheik from one of these Middle Eastern countries came here to look at land and agriculture and those things
True.
like that, and left with a $22 million contract to supply Sputnik. And when we
Mm-hmm.
did the investigations, it was twice the price of what anybody else in the world was paying for this Sputnik vaccines for COVID. Then you had an announcement with on a deal for electronic ID cards, which is sometime last year, which actually rolled out for $4 million US on that. The same Middle Eastern place. Then you had another announcement that's how they're going to do the plans and building applications from another Middle Eastern person. No tender, no nothing. That was
No,
34
nothing.
million US dollars. Now you have this one here now, which will end up probably costing us over 250 million US dollars in the um, over the 2 year period. You know what I mean? So that is the modus operandi. I mean, how these guys out in the far out of Kuwait and Qatar, hear about these projects, how they get in contact with our people, how they negotiate that all the secret. And then, of course, now, I mean, the one you mentioned is the hotel. They
Yeah.
sold prime properties, 14 acres of prime riverside property for
Mm-hmm.
$2 billion. I mean, that's unheard of. No one else, no Guyanese has the opportunity. But that is what this government does. I mean, create emergencies and then find these persons from so-called higher developing countries and come in like knights in shining armor, exorbitant
Correct.
costs, but because we are suffering, because from their mismanagement, people don't comment on it. I mean, the private sector hasn't said a word.
Mm-hmm.
had it been under the APNUF, and I as Minister of Public Infrastructure at the time, I thought he was required to articles about last time required also, and you'd have seen the private sector would have got up and asked for due diligence, how you know about this, etc. But there, all the guardians of democracy, those persons like that, they just absolutely totally silent. You can remember. I want your viewers to remember so that there was a contract by for parking meters. They didn't agree with it, the private sector, the private union, and rightly so,
Yes.
wrongly so. I'm not going to talk about the merits of it. Every single Thursday there was a movement against parking meters because that's what
Yes.
the contract lack transparency. I just called five
Mm-hmm.
contracts, which is like should be what almost 25 times the value of that parking meter, and you have not seen a
And nothing
single
happening.
protest, not a single letter, not
Mm-hmm.
even on social media. So
Mm-hmm.
people have to understand what's really going on here.
Yeah, and I've also noted, and I think you would have made some comments in this regard. I mean, we're not just looking at places like Qatar and these other deals. There is now, we saw, I think it was a day ago or 2 days ago, the government announcing that they will have been approaching China in regards to building a bridge at the quarantine area. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's another one of those things. Of course, a bridge linking Guyana and Suriname is always you know, is always welcome. But what is not welcome is how they go about it.
Doing it.
They initially, when they came in, said it's a joint project between the Guyana and Suriname. Great. So therefore, obviously, the Guyanese would think it's how Guyana would pay half, Suriname would pay half. You heard last week that they're approaching China to get funding. The greatest partners are China and these Middle Eastern countries. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I want your viewers to know that we as the European Union never took any contracts or any money from China and those things like that when they established back because we could never be caught up in any sort of suitcase issue. So now there's a big announcement that we are approaching Suriname, and Suriname very cleverly announces that they are under IMF regulations, so therefore they can't take up any more
They
new
can't.
loans.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, once again, Guyana will be taking out this loan because if Suriname can't do it anymore, so China has to take a loan. We will be taking out another loan. Who owns the bridge? I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
Suriname has a potential claim on the Quarantine River where it said the entire Quarantine River belongs to them.
Belongs
Is
to
there
them.
any agreement signed to say that, oh, listen to me, even though Guyana will be now funding it, because obviously Suriname can be part of this loan agreement, and the bridge belongs to Guyana and the Guyanese authorities will run it and collect the tolls and those things like that. It's nothing like that.
Nothing.
Everything they do just scare them, and half ideas, and we simply and everyone simply goes along with it in the name of in the hope of development. But you can't have development like this, whereby the country, the Guyanese taxpayers are having to put the entire bill. They can't.
Mm-hmm.
There's been the amount of loans that we've taken. Our future generations will be burdened with these loans that they've taken. Taking loans from almost every single person. Any person that says, "Oh, you have money, we take loans." This time, we have billions of dollars.
Correct.
Can't pay people. Can't pay anybody. Can't reduce income tax rates. Go and borrow billions and billions of dollars on projects, and every single one of their projects are stalled. Every single one. You name it, they're stalled. So they're just taking this money, they can't spend it, they're leaving debt burden on every citizen, born and unborn. And then we have to pay it back. And
Mhm.
all of these contracts are delayed and riddled with some sort of irregularity.
As you talk about the loans, many Guyanese would have felt that the fact that we are making so much money now from the oil and gas sector, we keep hearing about the billions of dollars. The loans would have been something that would have been significantly reduced. But instead, what we're seeing is almost as if there is an increase in us approaching places for loans during this period.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, the idea of when we at the APNUF created the Sovereign Wealth Fund, it was to benefit all Ghanaians. So we're getting now almost 650 thousand barrels a day. At the current price, that means that Guyana earns our 14.5%. We earn about 8 million US dollars every single day from the oil revenue.
Mhm.
Why is it that you can't put some aside? You know what I mean? If you put some aside, this bridge is supposed to cost 100, the Suriname bridge is supposed to cost, say, let's say 120,000. You
Mhm.
could take and you could take $2 million, $2 million out of that every single day. In 70 days, you can pay for it,
Mhm.
right? Because that would be $140 million. $2 million out of 8 million US dollars we're getting
Mhm.
every single day. We don't need to borrow loans. All we need to do is plan strategically,
Mhm. Budget.
spend prudently, budget wisely, and we could fund all these things without putting it. And if you only take two and you use four, you save two that of the $8 million, there will be money for our future generations. There will be money for us to spend now on what we want to do locally without these loans. But they don't want that. They want to spend all the money because they want to spend all the money that we have now on pie in the sky things, giving their friends $1 billion contract to build a pump station. You know what I mean? Never ever built a pump station, never built anything. Hasn't
Mhm.
finished a single project, but he gets $1 billion, 5 million US dollars to build a pump station. And then, they give the statement aid in Bamio like 4 years, the longest building primary school, you know what I mean? Another 2 million US
Yeah.
dollars to build a
Yeah.
primary school. So that's what they do with our money. That's what they do with our money, and of course, I mean, then they say, I mean, they borrowed $200 million from the Demerara arbitration. That doesn't even started. It's only like 8% completed. You mean so all the projects that they have are just stalled.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But they keep borrowing just because they can get their hands on money.
Yeah, you would have when while you were in government as the Minister of Public Infrastructure, you would have inherited a deal that the PPPC obviously would have concocted how they usually do in the same fashion and style for the airport. And when you got into that position, it took, I know, a lot of work on your end and generally the government end to have much of that work still done and got the airport, to a reasonable state. We're here. The PPP is back in power. There's lots of things happening again with that airport contract. And we're hearing about delays again. We're hearing about this again. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's exactly what they do. They create this mess. Other people come around and try to clean it up and make some sense of what they've done, and then they got back in and restarted exactly where they stopped off.
Left it off.
They
Mhm.
they signed the airport contract about 2 weeks before the 2011 elections. One of the
Mhm.
last acts that Jack Dio did as president of this country. $150 million. No design, no specification, no nothing at all. It took them 3 years, three
Mhm.
years to start even working on it. And when they started, they realized how they made some fundamental errors that they wanted to extend the airport, but where they said they were going to do it was swamp. We
Mhm.
2015 fix all of that. I mean, obviously, it's a fixed contract of $150 million. So therefore, in fixing the runway to what it is now and what we left there, the second longest runway in the CARICOM, we had to make some adjustments. So therefore, we built a new terminal building. We, I mean, we installed 4 air bridges. They have come back in, and they have spent no more than equal amount of almost 100 million US dollars, and nothing. They've done nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they continue spending it unchecked. You haven't heard a single word. They just see pictures in the paper saying that they're doing this. If you go to the airport, I traveled there last in January through there. Absolutely nothing has changed from when
Mm-hmm.
we handed it over to now. The same terminal building, the same departure lounge. Exact same things. They said they put in 2 air bridges. Fair enough, but 2 air bridges only are 400,000 US. We put in 4. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nothing, but they've spent about almost 60 to 100 million dollars in additional money. Have not we put in, and there's certain things that people should know. In 2019, we signed a contract with an international firm, I think it's Canadian Bank, to put in 10 e-kiosks, which is like the electronic. When you travel to the States, Jamaica, England, the developed world, you stick your passport in an e-kiosk and you're
Yeah.
checked in automatically. We paid
Mm-hmm.
the deposit, 25% deposit for these things, 10 of them, so that when Guyanese, returning Guyanese, particular, with personal Guyanese passport, all you have to do is, the NDIA ran the data cables, everything was there. We're just waiting on the e-kiosks to come, and COVID stopped the, of course, delayed that. Everything was set. So therefore, when Guyanese come back, return personal Guyanese passport, all they would have to do is scan this passport, push it in the passport, gives you a printout, so you don't have that long queue that you have as a returning Guyanese to come back here. They cancel that.
Mm-hmm.
Cancelled it. I don't know what it did, if they were given a refund or whatever. They cancelled that whole thing and has not done another alternative.
Mm-hmm.
So had we carried through with that, we would have such a modern airport where a person just come, Guyanese comes, swipe their passport in the EQAS, tapped, and we worked out it would take you 30 to 60 seconds, less than a minute to complete your check-in for immigration and be out of the airport. Right now, you have to get there and queue up just because they refuse to allow any project that we did, even despite how progressive it is.
Mm-hmm. I know we're sharply approaching or we're just about a minute off of the time that you
Yes,
need to
sorry about
leave.
that. Yeah.
I understand. I totally understand. I just want to have a quick comment on, with you were there as well. You did lots of work on the roads. We saw better roads. We saw longer lasting roads during this period. I am watching currently there are all these projects that are happening. They're literally smalling in, minimizing the drain sizes around the town. And the rain has not started yet. We are now heading into the rainy season. We had some good rain this morning. And as I went down home stretch where one of those projects is happening, I'm already seeing a lot of water on the lodged at the side of the road. I mean, how are we going to move forward with this?
Well, once again, our record stands for itself. But soon as we got in 2015, we had a major flood, a major rainfall, and the city flood. And we dedicated the time to reopening. By when we got in there, there are 13 sluices, only 7 were working. We got all 13 back. They were pumps. We got them all working. We all the interior, the main canals, we cleared of debris, encumbrances. So the city
Mhm.
was draining within 24 hours. You could the whole city would. They are now coming and reducing. I saw Mr. Tony Vera wrote a good letter, which explains it in layman's terms. They're reducing our drainage capacity, our outlets drainage capacity by at least 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
All in what without any idea, without any studies, without any things like that. And what will happen now is that we will have severe flooding. And half of these projects they even started. They started reducing them. They haven't even finished them. 2 years,
Mhm.
4 years running. You know, I mean, look at Dennis Street. You
Yeah.
look at all these places. I mean, Fort Foot Canal and those things. They're all still on the water. The rains are coming now. But once again, I want to leave you with this. Just
Mhm.
like GPL, they create a problem. So the rainy season will come, and we will have flooding, ladies and gentlemen. We will have flooding, and this is predictable. And what they will do, they will find somebody in some far off country, and they'll set out emergency pumps, emergency pumps to drain the problem they create. You mean that's like thiefology 101. Create a problem, let the people suffer, let the people be desperate for solution. Then you come to a solution, and people are because they're so desperate because we're underwater all the time. We don't
Mhm.
question the cause. So
Correct.
they reduce all our drains 50 to 100%. We will get flooding, and they will say, "Oh, listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what the government of your government will do. We found some place. It wouldn't be hundreds. It won't be Cuba. It'll probably be Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, or someplace like that. We found 40 pumps ready to be deployed, and they'll be deployed in Guyana within the next 6 weeks to ease the flooding." And people will say, "Oh, well, yes, the government doing," but they created a problem so that
Correct.
they can do what they want to do to solve it. And I guarantee you, market that like just like I predicted that's what they're gonna do with a barge, and they're gonna find an emergency and they can do that. I'm
Mhm.
predicting that's what's gonna happen now with the drainage system. Emergency thing, and they blame the AP and you. They will say,
Mhm.
"Oh, we didn't do this, we didn't do that." But the proof of the pie is in the eating.
Correct.
Persons know how we had the system. They can recall it not so long ago. It may seem long ago to them because they haven't flooded for a while, but
Mhm.
that literally is the truth of what is. They're creating problems and finding solutions that benefit them, their friends, family, and their favorites.
Different.
Raiding the corporate. That's exactly what they're doing.
Mhm. I want to thank you so much because I know your time is up. You have AFC will be having their press
Press
conference
conference.
in a
Right.
minute or so. So I want to thank you for joining. And I do hope to have you back here soon so we can interrogate some other issues.
Anytime, my dear. Anytime. And good afternoon to your viewers. You could join us on the AFC website.
All
Thank
right.
you very
Thank
much.
you so much. All right, viewers. So you were listening to former Minister of Public Infrastructure, Mr. David Patterson, as we talked about some of those issues. And I want to stay on the same conversation that we would have left off, and we'll continue to talk about infrastructural work. But my next guest today is none other than Mr. Sherwin Holder, chairman of the People's National Congress Reform, and he is the Shadow Minister of Natural Resources, Member of Parliament. Welcome, Mr. Holder.
Hi, thanks
And
for
now,
having me, Shanika.
yes, now I'm hearing you. Yes, it is my privilege to have you on the program. We usually don't ever have enough time to go over the things that we have, but we're going to see how best we can do. I wanted to bring you in on the conversation that I just left off with Mr. Patterson. I was talking about the situation with the road that we are seeing. There are projects coming up left, right, and center, particularly in the Georgetown area. I'm seeing a lot of residential areas as well being affected, where we're for some reason seeing that in residential zones, for some reason, the government wants to widen the road in those residential areas. I'm looking at places like Bel Air, etc. We're seeing that happening right now. You see home stretch as well. There is a widening project going there. The largest drain, which is on the side with, I believe, Kanu, etc. We see them filling that big drain. We've already seen them narrow on the other side. And today, a bit of rain fell this morning, and we are basically looking at all of that water that is already being launched on home stretch, and every drain or trench in that area is already flooded.
Oh, yes, Janika, thanks. Look, we have to look at this whole thing in the historical context of the People's Progressive Party. I want to take you back before I actually get to the issue at hand. I believe that the People's Progressive Party is in a state of mind. Uh, and let me explain. In a particular state of mind, over the 23 years that they were in power, they were not able to really achieve anything tangible, anything that they could show that, look, this is what we did over a period of over 2 decades, 2 decades plus 3 years. And so that has to be taken against the backdrop of what the PNC did while the PNC was in power from 1964 all the way to 1992. The PNC has some remarkable projects. We had a decade of development where we had the largest floating bridge. We had the multilateral school expansion across the development and expansion across the country. We had highways all the way from Borbis all the way down to Region 3. There are so many infrastructural projects that the PNC, the Linden Highway, which still stand, which stood the test of time, that is still there. Of course, now there is need for repairs. But what I'm trying to say to you is that you have to look at it from this angle. There are a number of angles that I want to analyze it from, but this is one of the angles. They don't have anything tangible to show. And so, given the fact that they now have this oil money, this oil wealth, they have loaded the budget with it. The budget mainly is an infrastructural budget. It does nothing for the ordinary people, really. In terms of the development of their lives, we see the economy plunging. We see the cost of living on the increase. That is actually an understatement. The cost of living is pretty much high and overbearing for most of the people in this country, the ordinary people. And so we have to look at it from that perspective. They have a lot of money now. They are a corrupt government, so you have to take that into consideration. They're only looking to dole out these projects to their friends, family, and favorites. And so, in my view, they would have overloaded their friends and family. Some of them don't even have the capacity. And I know you don't want to get into some, you don't want to identify certain specific projects. And we can come to that. But I'm giving you it broadly. They don't have the capacity. Many of them are now getting into construction. Many of them are housewives listed as constructor. And I have nothing against a woman developing and have it. But what I'm saying, some of these projects, when you look at it, $200 million. You can look at the Bamia project, how many hundreds of millions of dollars to DJs. We can look at, and I know you want to discuss further, TPU group, headed by Critic. Those are all examples. And so this is what is creating the failure on their part. They don't have a plan. They're just, as you rightfully highlighted, you just see infrastructure projects are just taking place randomly. Another thing that I think is critical to what you're saying is the fact that they are narrowing the drains, and they're not taking into consideration that the rains might come very soon, and then we will see flooding in Georgetown. We are going to see major flooding. Brace yourselves, guys. We're going to see flooding in Georgetown with all these projects that they're doing, and they're not managing it properly. There's no national or no regional or no drainage plan for Georgetown, our capital city. We know that Georgetown historically has been flooded very, very easily, and there is a need for citywide or a
Mhm.
national drainage policy, I would dare say. None of
Yeah.
that is existing under this PPP government. So they will run into these problems. I
Mhm.
would, I know you have more questions. I would just take a bite at the airport project, for example.
Yeah.
Myself, as chairman for the Economic Services Committee, I had one Jill in front of my committee just on the 10th of this month. And I
Mhm.
asked the question, why is it that this airport project just keeps going and going over a decade long, way over? We continue
Yeah.
to pour billions and billions, and we're not seeing where these monies are going, the projects are marred by delays, and you're not saying anything to the nation. A simple
Mhm.
response was that in places like the US, you see these big airports continue to expand. That is unacceptable. We must know what is the plan here. David rightfully expounded on it. The mistakes that they would have made. They had
Mhm.
no plan. They took over 3 years to get off the ground, and it was a disaster.
Mhm.
There was a public outcry, and there continues to be a public outcry. I saw the minister go
Mhm.
to the airport, and I was flabbergasted by the comments by the minister. I'm sitting in my living room watching this unfold. The minister is saying to the contractor, look guy, you have to take on more staff, and you have to do this and you have to do that. The minister is not the technical person, and for a
Right.
minister, Ejel
Correct.
understands that this thing, there are delays, and it is embarrassing his government. He From that statement, it could be inferred that he understands that the contractor lacks the capacity and the competence to undertake such a project. And so
Mhm.
he is now volunteered to say to the contractor, look, you've got to employ more persons, and you got to do X and you got to do Y. That is unacceptable.
Mhm.
It is supposed to be the other way around.
Correct.
The contractor is supposed to explaining the process to the minister and bringing him up to scratch. That
Right.
this is where
Mhm.
we are, and this is this is my progress report. This is when I intend to complete it. These are the challenges. These are and that's what is supposed to be happening. But it is the other way around. Unfortunate. We can go to the project of Conversation Tree Road. That project,
Mhm.
that widening and making that highway there. They
Yeah.
just announced that they have to scrap a section of that project. They have to scrap it.
Yeah.
The contract is failing miserably to complete his portion of work. Now, what that means is that it has to go back to tender. I hope they follow the right process and don't
We
handpick
hope
someone
it
again.
goes back.
For them,
Yeah.
you have to go back to the process. It means that you have a time delay. Obviously, you will lose some money. I don't care what they say. You will lose
Mhm.
money, and time is money. Time is money. There
Mhm.
is the drainages, because the project will leave just as it is. And so there drainages, there are a series of consequences because of
Mhm.
PPP incompetence, and their corruption when it comes to the whole issue of contracts. We can look at, and I hope you spare me 2 more seconds. We can look
No, go
at
ahead.
at at another project or several others. We can look at the Cemetery Road project, which has been in
Correct.
the media for a long, long time. And, and,
Mhm.
and we can identify the contractor as a friend of the People's Progressive Party. It is quite obvious.
Correct.
The number of contracts that particular contractor was given. I have no problems with contractors. I feel that everybody has the right to get into construction. It is a lucrative industry, or it should be a lucrative industry. But you gotta look at people's competence. Maybe they could
Mhm.
handle one contract. Maybe they could handle a contract that is of a lower value. You can't load
Yeah.
them up with hundreds of millions of dollars expecting kickbacks, and then believe that these works will be done to the right specification, and done in a particular time according to the
Yeah.
contractual arrangement. And that is what is happening there. We see all
Mhm.
sorts of ridiculous excuses. We saw that the zombies, the corpses, whatever, were interfering.
Mhm.
All sorts of nonsense. coming from the
The
bishop.
minute,
He's supposed to be
and
a
he
man
went
of
to
God. He's
Parliament
supposed to,
and said that.
he said that in Parliament. And
Mhm.
it is shameless, it is ridiculous. It shows the level that they will go to defend their contractor cronies. I asked him that question, The records of the Economic Services Committee of the 10th of April will show that I, Shurwayne Holder, as chairman, asked that question. And what he gave some explanation, tried to water it down, but he said, we can't take it away from him because the same things that I said with the previous contract, the conversation tree, there will be serious consequences, time delays, etc. I
But
raised
he
also.
continuously, I just want to make the point, he continuously goes to those very sites and in front of the media say, I will end the contract.
Yes, he says one thing. That is a classic PPP government. They say one thing and they do something else. It's just like when they said they want clean voters list and biometrics. They say it in opposition, and when they come back to the big government, they do something else.
Nothing.
It's the same thing with the oil contract. It's the same thing with the judicial, the constitutional reform committee. So many instances. I raised the issue of South Aubrey Barker Road, that main road in South, that divides South and North from Bell. It's the same old story. You go there, you have a look at it. They are barely complete. They have completed maybe 1/10, if so much, of that project. They have completed maybe 1/10 of the project. You know how many months? We can go back to see when that contract was signed. You would be surprised. You'd be surprised. The PPP government are not managing. They've shown that they don't have the capacity, the competence to manage such huge influx of revenues. And all they are focused on, they don't have a plan, and all they are focusing is on doling out these contracts to cronies. So obviously they can have kickbacks for their own gains.
That Aubrey Barker Road contract that you just mentioned, it will be a serious test in the city, particularly when this May-June rain comes, because that is also one of the projects where we already know that area has a major issue with drainage, and it has been so for decades. We saw during the coalition time, I can't necessarily attest for what would have lessened something that we saw in that area during the time, maybe outside of all the cleaning that took place in those areas. But we did see a reduction in the flooding in that area. Now, that took a lot of cleaning of the big drains that were there. And on that road, you have one of those major drainage points that were there. And basically, with this project, we have seen most of that drain disappear. I am extremely worried about what will happen in that community with the project. It doesn't even seem halfway through, and the fact that many of the areas have already been closed. And what will happen?
Shanika, that is what we've been saying all along, and we keep banging it. These people don't have a clue. They don't have a plan. They do not have a plan. You have to address the drainage situation in North Rumbelt and South Rumbelt before that is critical. Before you go to expand the road, you need to address the most critical issue. You have to prioritize as a government. And this is basic. This is management 101, Shanika. This management 101. You have to prioritize. There are certain basic things that you must consider. You know that the major issue for this community is flooding, and it's a huge community. You have thousands of persons living there. It's one of the most heavily populated areas in Georgetown. And so it is a problem that we have to solve. We did, as you rightfully said, we did certain things. We took certain steps in ensuring, mobilizing mobile pumps, ensuring that those who are responsible to do certain things with the sluices, they do it on time, they do their job, and you had this kind sort of efficiency. So while you could not have determined what Mother Nature would do, you still took the necessary steps. You preempted certain things, and so that is why we were on top of our game. This administration is doing quite the opposite. They're putting the cart before the horse. You're going to do road expansion before you address the critical issue of drainage. And yes, they will say, "Oh, we're doing a big drain alongside." That is not it. The drainage is not only for Aubrey Barker Road. It is the entire from belt which might lead into that major drain there. And so you've got to deal with this issue holistically. Shanika, I reiterate again, these people don't have a clue. They don't have a plan to what they're doing. And the hurtful thing is that they have access to so much resources. They have access. Money is not a problem. You can't complain about money. 3/4 of the budget is infrastructure. The money is there. And so it is just a matter of their incompetence and the corrupt nature of the People's Progressive Party, the lack of vision, the lack of proper planning to deal with the infrastructural works that they have now embarked on.
You know, I want us to touch, I spoke with David Patterson on the issue of GPL, and we particularly zoomed into the new update where we're now being told that they'll be paying $1 million for mobilization of that ship. And then, of course, there's the added cost per kilowatt, some 6 point something cent, US cents, that is, per kilowatt. And we would have talked about and pointed out that here again, we've entered a deal with Qatar. We also remember the issue with the hotel. And he also brought us back when the ship here, who came on one mission and ended with a deal for vaccine to COVID-19. You know, so we're looking at that. What's your thought on that?
Look, the PPP, again, I want to put this thing into context. In my view, this government creates certain crises in society so that they can achieve certain things. I wouldn't put it past them of allowing certain things to happen. Look, if we go back to when they came into government, why would you scrap a system that is working? You know, when you left government, the mess that you had there, you were incapable of handling it. It was out of control. The opposition came in and dealt with it. We put a strong plan in place, a moving plan, a 5-year plan that constantly moves. We brought in the technical people. We operated professionally, and we got the job done without oil money. Why would you come in and dismantle such a plan? I could only conclude that there are underlying motives here. There are underlying motives here. And so people, how I see it, this allows them now to go and sole source as they are doing, because they are not putting anything to tender here. They are going to treat it as an emergency issue, and it is an emergency issue. I'm not saying that it's not. This is a crisis. We need this thing fixed like yesterday, Shanika. We need this thing fixed like yesterday. And so it is an emergency, but they are going to use that to outsource, and they have particular areas that they go to. It is by no accident that they are going in a particular region to engage a particular company to do certain things. And so what is being revealed there is quite alarming. $1 million just to mobilize the ship, and there are so many questions. I am told that we have to pay for the fuel There's all sorts of arrangements here that is questionable. How feasible is this for the country? Are we going to waste money? I understand that we need to fix this problem. But do you know how many proper generators we could have gotten with this deal and have a permanent fix? Rather than this is a 2 years arrangement, you know. And so that money that million US that is gone. That's an expense that's just gone. That's gone with the wind. There is nothing, there's no fixed asset there that will continue to serve us. This is a 2-year plan, and this is what you're paying for, strictly a 2-year plan. So I wouldn't be surprised after the 2 years if this thing does help a little in whatever way. I wouldn't be surprised that there is some kind of other agreement, other arrangement carrying it beyond that. You know, how there are questions in terms of the megawatts and that it will produce. I see they're saying something about $6, but we have to analyze it. But on the face of it, there are lots of questions here, and I will see it as it is. They have, as I said on the press conference, they have a way of sole sourcing. They have a way of trying to get these outsiders to produce the power, and then you have behind the scenes all sorts of deals could be cut from it. Here in Essequibo, you have 8 containerized sets, 1 meg containerized sets that they are using. I'm certain that thing has cost the taxpayers over $1 billion over the last 3 years, while you have 3 prime generator sets, prime engines, slow moving generator sets that are ideal for the kind of purpose, the kind of generation that you want. You use those prime sets as backup sets, those 1 meg fast rev sets. You use those 1800 revs per minute sets. You use them as backup sets because you have to service them very, 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 very quickly. You have a lot of moving parts. You have to service them every 250 hours as minimum. That will incur a significant cost in terms of maintenance. I'm getting into the technical issues now of this. So there are disadvantages to that, and that is the route that they're going. So there's no doubt to me that it goes back. If they had worked with our plan, there was no need to get involved into some ship, some barge coming to give us power, and us having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, provide the fuel, and do all sorts of things just to try to stabilize the power in Georgetown. I heard the president now talking this trash and Barajagdi as well, that is APNU fault. They find another excuse now, other than saying that they don't have the technical people and they gotta bring. And let me get into this first. The technical people, the issue of technical people. What happened on that? No. What happened on that? We used the same system. We had no money as they have now. The same transmission lines, we use the same system, the same people, and we garnered better results. They are now going to Cuba. When you look at Cuba, if you take a look at Cuba had a lot of power problems, Shanika. Cuba had a lot of power problems. So I'm questioning the logic in bringing technical people, saying that you need to bring technical people from Cuba, who obviously can't solve their own power problems there, but you're bringing them in Guyana here to solve.
They have to get a ship.
Here. Then we go to the issue of Amelia Falls. The next excuse, Amelia Falls. We all know what transpired with Amelia Falls. I have been requesting and campaigning for somebody to put up Amelia Falls right now. I am certain, without a shadow of a doubt, that falls is bone dry. Kaichor is barely dripping, the mighty Kaichor. And we've seen before what would have obtained with Amelia Falls. It can be the solution. You have dry season now. Where would we have gotten 160 megawatts from Amelia Falls? It would not happen. And once there is that shortfall, it will mean that we will still be in the same situation that we are now. So the nation must pay keen attention to these lies that they try to put out there. It makes no sense. They just wake up one morning and talk these things. It is their party's mantra. It is their talk that, oh, it's APNU fault. Everything in this country is APNU fault. The dunces of persons in this nation would know that when we took office, there was a problem with power in this country in a major way. And when we left office, it was a different situation. We would have reduced the blackout situation in this country
significantly. Correct. We are, of course, running out of time. We're almost to that end time. But I want us to talk about an issue I didn't get to speak to with Mr. Patterson as well. But we had the incident not yesterday, but day before yesterday, where the wharf area and the back of Stabroek area that in
folks, it seems as though our host would have lost connection. We're just waiting for her to sign
you're
back in.
hearing it?
Yes, I'm hearing you now. We lost
Yeah.
you, so I was saying that we lost you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm saying that we know in we're talking about the part of the Stabroek market and the wharf that would have fell on Wednesday, I believe it was, and the fact that in 2017 it was the coalition government who would have condemned the area, and there was a proposal for a joint project between the main city council, who has main responsibilities for that area, but in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, that would have decided that they will do overhauling and do a project where they would have basically redone the entire area. And, it would have also been a form of a beautification project being done by the two entities collaborating. And that project was set to either start somewhere in 2018, early 2019. And then, of course, we know we had the no confidence motion. Those proposals were still there. The government came in and nothing has happened. And here again, we hear the president trying to put the blame on the coalition in this regard. And another troubling thing that I've noticed, and much persons aren't talking about it, but he immediately said that we're going to fix it and we're going to fix it now. And this goes back to what we've been talking about all afternoon here on the program. Where are we getting all of this money from? The procurement procedures, nothing is being placed. We just come, oh, it's an emergency, and here we go. You take it over from the competent people, and you're not even going to collaborate or talk about it. You've made a grand announcement. Let's talk about that.
You're absolutely right. I want to say from the onset that the blame for this has got to be placed squarely at the feet of Irfan Ali and the PPP government. You rightfully said that in 2017, we would have condemned that. In fact, Shanika, it should have been condemned a long time before that. It should have been that was a death trap, and we rightfully, the AP and UAFC rightfully condemned it. But that being said, and all this about our plans, yes, we had plans to get it done. The resources, obviously, we had to prioritize where we're going to put resources, but we did the right thing to condemn it and not have persons there. I want to say it is regrettable that some people still used it, and about 5 persons or so, as reported in the media, would have been injured. I want to say that you have my sympathy and the sympathy of my party and the coalition in that regard. But that being said, now, when you look at what Ali is saying, a lot of things could be discerned from what he's saying there. You said that, I saw it, that he said, we're going to do it. Monies are suddenly available. Hello. Let me say this. Collaboration is the word. You're seeing it clearly that they have the money to do what is right, what is necessary, but they are refusing. They are refusing to do that because the APNU AFC has a majority on the council, and because this is a PNC base. They don't care that this is Georgetown, the capital city of Guyana. They don't care about that. All they care about their own internal politics. They care about discriminating against any council that is a majority APNU AFC. Any council, whether it's a town council or NDC, that has been the approach of this People's Progressive Party. You know, we are lucky. Excuse me. We are lucky that that building did not fall and kill a couple of our citizens. It would have been a real tragedy. It would have been a real tragedy, Shanika. And so it is really disingenuous and for Ali to come out and say the things that he is saying. It shows that it highlights the point that we've been making all the time. They do not want to collaborate with the city council. They have no interest in the well-being of the people of Georgetown, and that is why you're having these strategies. It also demonstrates once again their incompetence and where their interest, where their major focus is. They went and do a project on the seawall. Our project would have entailed from downtown Georgetown, this area, right through to Kingston. That is the project that we were looking at. They went and they copied portions of it, and they did something at the bandstand area. They did something there recently, and mind you, these people were criticizing these kinds of projects. They were telling people that you can't eat road and you can't eat parks and you can't eat these kind of projects. But they went and they copied it. But the problem is that they don't know how to prioritize. You got to set your priorities straight. You got to fix that debt trap that is there. That is the important thing, and that serves not as a place to go and lime. This is income we're talking about. This is income for the livelihood of those vendors, those poor vendors out there. They will have a place where they can put their produce out, and people can buy from them, and they can and it can sustain them. It can sustain their livelihoods. This is what we're talking about here. So the priority would have been for APNU. The priority would have been to fix that area. We've already begun the process. We began the process of fixing some of these structures, like the kitty market. We did it. That very market right there next door, structure next door, Stabroek, right there. We fixed it. We fixed it.
Yeah.
So we know our priorities. We are concerned about the ordinary people. We don't operate like the People's Progressive Party. When we were in government, we cooperated with every single NDC and towns, and they have always historically, because of the spread of the population and the historic voting pattern, they pick up more NDCs than us. That's a known fact historically. But we cooperated with them. We raised the subvision. We trained them. We provided training. We called them to meetings. We worked out a plan for them. Many times they didn't come. They didn't come. Barjagdio and the PPP told them not to come, not to cooperate with the AP and UAFC. But we still forged ahead in the interest of this country, in the interest of unifying, in the interest of taking care of all Guyanese, regardless of race, regardless of which political party you vote for. And that is how we operate all the time. And that is how we will continue to operate when we get government next year.
Thank you. As we're out of time, we have to do this more often, but we're out of time.
I agree.
Right now.
You bring out the best in me, Shanika.
Yes, we'll definitely be having you here more often. I want us to close up, we know that elections are on its way. We see that the PPP is campaigning. They're in campaign mode. We don't know when they'll necessarily call that election. And we know the coalition has a lot of plans heading in. And, as we wrap up, I want to give you the opportunity to highlight some of the things, we would have highlighted a lot of things that the PPP has continuously done wrong, the things that people are feeling at home so they know what is happening, but we also want them to hear, what are some of our plans heading into government after the next election as we close the program.
Thank you, Shanika. Shanika, we are cognizant of the fact that the ordinary Guyanese is hurting. The ordinary Guyanese is struggling. We're very cognizant of that fact. We are cognizant of the fact that the PPP is or has been mismanaging practically every sector in this country. They've mismanaged the economy, they've mismanaged public infrastructure, they've mismanaged the police. They are failing to deliver the kind of resources from the oil industry to the people. Resources are not meeting the people. And so I want to say to the public that our focus, first and foremost, will be our people-centered development approach. It is an approach which says that all of our people must benefit from the resources of this country, including the resources coming from oil, and they must be able to live a comfortable life. And that is what we want to deliver broadly. We're also saying that people at the bottom must rise. The people at the bottom, because as a nation, if we still continue to have people struggling to find a basic meal when the day come, poor people, if we still have poverty in this country, then we would not have achieved the kind of status that we're claiming as the fastest growing economy and that sort of thing. So we want to elevate the people that are at the bottom so that we can level the playing field. We can bring them up to the level of others, and all of us can live a comfortable life. Some of the things that we want to do immediately is to provide a livable wage. We believe that this is critical to the development of the majority of Guyanese people. We want to see our public servants earning more, or hardworking public servants earning more. We want to see our military, all of them within the public service. We want to see them having better earnings, and even in the private sector. We want to provide for our young people. We want to provide proper scholarships for them. We want to provide free university. We want to free up UG. I saw the president talking about persons going to UG should be able to work and contribute to the workforce, and the fall short, the shortfalls there. We have a different approach to that. We want to have free university and to provide stipends for them. Stipends while they're going to university so that they can take care of their expenses. We will have a comprehensive agriculture program. Agriculture is one of the keys to reducing the cost of living. You must have more food and food in abundance on the market so that you can reduce that food cost, that heavy food cost, and the cost of living that we have. We want to focus on expanding agriculture to regions 1, regions 7, 9, and 10. Those areas we want to focus on to have much produce coming out from there. We want to have a professional police force. We want to professionalize the police force. We believe that there is a lot of lawlessness that is happening now under this PPP government, and as we did in that period 2015 to 2020, we want to see a professional police force, one that is ensuring that it enforces the law and ensure that there is law and order, and there is not a rampant crime and corruption that is taking place in society. We want to deal with the whole issue of corruption within our society. We believe that corruption will cost us. It costs us a lot of money, and so you don't get value for your money. You don't get. We see the breakdown in all these projects that should be benefiting people. We see a breakdown there because of corruption. We want to ensure that we give grants to people. This is critical. We want to give proper grants to farmers to proper grants to the small business people that are now creating these small business industry, small and medium scale business people. We want to give proper grants to them. We want to empower our indigenous people, Shanika. We want to train them. They are relegated to the lowest level in this country. We want to show that they are people too. They are citizens too. We want to train them to be contractors. We want to train them in every single profession. We want to empower them. Shanika, I know the time, and I'm putting you in a
There's a
spot
lot.
here, but I
Yes.
can look every single industry in this country and tell you about our plans. We have the finances to do it. We will run a clean government. We will run one that is transparent. Our oil industry, we will run it better. We will ensure that we get better, much more resources through audits, through better scrutiny of the oil and gas industry. We will train more people within the oil and gas and within society to do certain things. And so we will provide a better life, a better life for everybody, all of our citizens. That is what the next coalition government guarantees to the citizens of this country.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Chairman, for joining the program today and, of course, giving great insight to everything that we would have discussed. I want to thank my viewers again for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week, same time, 12:30 to 1:30. I want to remind you, as citizens, we have our responsibility to keep and hold governments accountable, no matter who they be, and we must play that part. As when we help to keep the government accountable, our politicians are able to do what is necessary to stand up for us and to represent us better. And whenever the next general and regional election is called, you bear in mind the issues at hand and do what is necessary to put the People's Progressive Party out of power. I want to thank you once again and do have a wonderful afternoon.